Well, I'm Tomlin's Ford. I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's session. I don't want to make introductions overly long, but I do have a few things I'd like to say about people as we go along. Our first speaker is George Halsey of the University of Washington. And I noticed Bill Steele sitting in the back of the room. And Bill, I remember the way that you introduced George's symposium back in 1965. And I've remembered it because, wait a minute, I remembered it because I really thought it was significant. And Bill was George's first student, or almost his first student. And Bill started off the symposium by saying that people are fond of looking at their senior mentors and saying what a wonderful experience it is to work, or was to have worked with that person. And then he said, George is not really so senior to me, and so I can't say that. But then he went on to say that he felt that the experience with working with George Halsey as a graduate student was one of the great experiences of his life. I remember that statement. I told it to my father, who was also a college professor, and Dad cried, Bill, when I repeated that story. The work that George Halsey did years ago and has continued has led to so many things. The title of your talk in 1965, George, was Details of Monolayer Formation, Simple Attractive Disk Monolayer Isotherms with Phase Transitions. That's what we have. Your title today is somewhat simpler than that, but on the same topic. It's monolayer adsorption of a large atom on a triangular lattice. George Halsey, University of Washington.
Well, it's nice to be here, and I appreciate the invitation. And I decided, I gave in an abstract of something that I've been working on, and got to admit, that paper you talked about that I gave in 1965 was a lot better. Wish you hadn't mentioned that. But I thought I would start my talk and maybe spend as much time as I feel like on something which I actually was talking in the hall a little while earlier with Bill and others. That the modern surface scientists, as they call themselves, believe it all began more or less when they did their thesis. And I would really like to go over a list of names and theories that I think that people every now and then exhume, but perhaps this is the wrong audience, but I know it's the wrong audience because I'm sure you're not in that position that a lot of those surface scientists are in. But at any rate, I felt to get it off my chest. I'd like to start with my own teacher, my own teachers really. My teachers were Henry Eyring and Taylor, Hugh Taylor. You know, characteristically, Taylor ordered Eyring to finish his book on rate processes and provided Gladstone to do it because Laidler, who was also on the book, had other fish to fry. And out came what is a curiously flawed monograph, Eyring's book on rate theory, but in that book there's an absolutely precious section on the absolute rate theory applied to surface process. And this is Laidler's thesis. You know, it represented a real union. In fact, I would say it's one of the several times that Taylor and Eyring put their very different talents together, in the sense that Later was as much Taylor's student as he was Eyring's student, because he was a surface person, catalyst person, and he was also an Eyring person. And so many of the formal problems of chemisorption and desorption and so forth were formulated, I think, correctly according to the absolute rate theory in that thesis. Now, another person who I never knew very well, and thanks to Howard Reese, I met him, and that was Dr. Stransky, who was from Graz, and later on in Berlin. And you look at the ideas that people have had about the structures of surfaces, the role of corners, edges, boundaries. These concepts were all laid out by Stransky. And I think probably one idea that was lacking in those early formulations of what could happen at a surface in terms of surface structure was the surface reconstruction. That's an idea that I must say, I think the highest compliment you can pay in the idea is to say, my goodness, why didn't I think of that? But other than that, I think Stransky understood these things. I think he also understood something which we are now beginning to understand is the relaxation at surfaces. So I think it's very important to remember that he had a good picture. Earlier today, we mentioned Bacon-Wheeler. Now we come to something, what I'm going to talk about, problems that need to be addressed and have never been addressed properly. Well, Bacon-Wheeler's mechanism for hydrogenation of ethylene is very hard to follow. They've never published a refereed paper, oddly enough. And so, very difficult to follow exactly what he was doing. But he had most of the ideas about how to do it. But one of the things which I got involved with was that if you believe the questions of the way in which molecules leave the surface, that is to say, when you have two species that react on the surface, so-called Langmuir mechanism, which was clearly what Bacon thought he had. Now, this is in general an unstable situation, and that if there's an excess of component A, and it must react with component B on the surface, there never is a stable concentration. The simplest sort of solution shows that it'll go immediately from all A to all B, which puts a definite limitation on the validity of surface reaction. And of course the signature, you'll find that in some of Hurdle's early work, and the signature for that is some kind of term that is a 1 minus theta A minus theta B term in the denominator, which is a symbol of the simplest symbol of competitive adsorption. And now the problem is that work on the distribution of particles that come off from the surface and measured angular distribution and so forth seem to support that Langmuir model rather than the Ely-Radiel model, which would have reaction from above. And so, as of now, I think that's still a basic problem. And one of the problems that makes it difficult is that, as far as I know, most of the generalizations and work on this kind of thing have been using very simple statistics for the location of the material on the surface. No one has ever worked out, as far as I know, any useful results for molecules that occupy different areas or different number of points of attachment, which of course ties in with what I have little I have to say today. Now, the other name, which I think maybe is remembered, is that Farnsworth, Brown, I believe, and Farnsworth was the original prophet of clean surfaces. As he said himself, he spent a whole lifetime working and nobody paying him attention, and then finally he came into his own 20 years ago, and people realized that he had pioneered, in as much as he could, the actual preparation of clean surfaces. Of course, as you all know, if you've been in this racket long enough, every 10 years somebody comes along and says that all the work was done before was no good on account of we didn't have a clean surface. And that's been going on, as I said, it repeats itself. But doctors changing their mind every decade or so about whether Delantin is good for you or not. Well, the only other thing that I wanted to put in, and I've got a few things to say at the end, is that I was very sad, although he'd been terribly ill for a long time, to hear of the death of my good friend Jack Aston, who, coming to an ACS meeting, there was no Jack Aston at it, but it's just sort of not quite the same. He was very useful person to me. He gave me a lot of ideas and helped me out a lot in getting some of the work that I did not talk about today going. And I just would like to publicly say that I do miss him. Now, the other piece of work that I'm interested in now is relaxation at the surface and stiction on the surface. As you probably know, islands, chemi-absorption islands grow. These islands have to be explained in terms of their size on some mechanical principle, because the ordinary non-solid phase theory would simply say, as I had said when I first started working on this, that the islands should keep on growing. Well, if the islands grow with a traction, that puts another parameter on it and can be used to limit their growth. I'd like to acknowledge the man that got me interested in this, and that was E.A. Flood from the National Research Council. And he's the person that very little appreciated in his life. But he was one of the first chemists to understand the importance of mechanical changes. Someone earlier today mentioned the inert model of the surface. Well, even for physical absorption, you can't just sit there and say that the surface is not going anywhere. Now, I'm a terribly pessimistic person. On account of the fact I was sure that there wouldn't be any overhead projector, on account of it would be broke, or the operator would be on strike. All these things have happened to me. I made some Xeroxes of the slides. You might as well get rid of them. You can take them home and do with them what you will. But now the problem is this. It's an extremely formal problem, and one in which I can't say that I've made much progress, but at least as one principle emerges, and that's what I thought was interesting. The first equation is the linear equation. I want wanted to arrange the linear equation to allow for the kind of adsorption that takes place on a graphite-like surface, where there's 3 times as many sites as you can use, because the molecule is big. Now, using a linear model for this is nuts, but it is a very interesting formal problem. So what I have there is the second term, the second equation, that expresses sort of a empirical mixing term, which throws in 1/3 to make the pressure go down by 1/3 in the beginning, because there's 3 times as many places for it to go, and then that disappears as the coverage becomes greater, and you go back to what should be the line, almost completed layer. Well, the spreading pressure should be right, everything should be right. In particular, the free energy can be got by the integration of essentially log p, and in the case of the linear equation, you get equation number 3, 4, and that equation is correct, and that just shows the linear equation is sensible. The entropy, which is the principal thing, the configurational entropy, is integral entropy. And by the way, most of the surface science guys don't know the difference between integral entropy and any other kind of entropy. But at any rate, that's just an insult. This is 0 at both ends, like it has to be, because it's 0 at the beginning because there's nothing there, and it's 0 at the end because the film is perfect. Now, putting in this fudge factor destroys that. I put it the extra term in the entropy. I thought that's really the point of this paper, if there is a point, that you have to watch out for things like that. It's very much akin to the, what's called, Gibbs-Duhem type considerations. You've got to worry about the integral. And so, in order to make the empirical isotherm behave correctly, one has a term to it which disappears at both ends. This term has a constant A in it, and if you put that A in and set A such that the integral comes out that the constant of integration is such that the entropy of the completed film is 0, then you get the value for A, which is log 3, and you get an entropy which behaves. You also get a spreading pressure which behaves, because this is the leading term in the spreading pressure. You don't expect the spreading pressure to be laying there at low coverage, just because you have a perturbation there that hasn't gone away yet. Now, what next? The next step, one which I'm really not so clear about. This step is quite at least clear when you put the numbers in. It causes the corrected isotherm to cross that other isotherm in such a way that the integral is right underneath it. Then I wanted to continue on and be able to evaluate the virial coefficients from the beginning. And so I simply took the entropy term, which is 0 properly, and multiplied it by a power series, arbitrary power series in theta, then expanded that and got the spreading pressure and the essentially log p. Now, I haven't got it here, but I evaluated it through the virial coefficients, and then I realized that how to do the virial coefficients from the other end, because as you pull individual atoms out of the mix, after you pull 2 atoms out side by side, the theta squared term, or 1 minus theta squared term, then the atoms can shift lattices. So there's a second virial you can calculate coming back. But at that point, I would hope, I really would hope, I hope that putting in this term would have given you some kind of van der Waals loop. But in order to get that, it's in the mathematics, it's just that the roots are imaginary. You have to take an absolutely unreasonable value of the number of sites that are wiped out. So I didn't get, if I got that, I'm going to tried to publish it, but I decided not to do that. Now, maybe a couple minutes more, right? 2-3 minutes more. It wouldn't be right to come to one of these things without talking about Paul Emmett. I thought I would just tell one joke. Emmett was a splendid big man in every sense of the word. We had a meeting in St. Louis once in a hotel. It was the Coronado Hotel. McBain was there. McBain, of course, is famous to some people as one of the early surface chemists. McBain was an English subject, but I believe he'd become an American citizen, and like so many people like that, he got very patriotic. And Emmett was on the chair, and McBain had been up on the. It was in a theater. You had to go up. It was colonial. There were 2 doors on both sides of the stage. You went up this side, you went up a little staircase, and you went around, opened another door, and you went on stage. So when you got there, that's the only way to get there. So we're getting ready to start, and McBain says, "Dr. Emmett, there is disrespect being shown to the American flag." And Emmett looked around and he said, "I don't see any American flag." And McBain said, "That's just it. It's hidden behind that scenery." And so, Emmett still couldn't see. So, he says, "I'll show you." So McBain started to go up on the stage. Well, you know, colonial buildings are symmetrical. There was a door on this side, and there was a door on that side. So McBain was on that side this time. So he opened the door. He's in a hurry, too, to rescue the American flag. He opened the door on the other side. It was pitch dark over there. Pretty soon there was this clatter of garbage cans coming from below. McBain had rushed down into the basement and ran into all the garbage cans. And pretty soon he dusted himself off and all this. Finally got on the stage and made Emmett move this enormously heavy flag. But that's a story from the time. Thank you.